camera's kind of clipping me a bit. See if I can fix that. I would appreciate if you guys could retweet. If you can't, that's fine. I just want to do this and see if people like the idea, because maybe it could be coming for you too. Alright. Look, I got one of your favorite bones. Alright. Feel free to clip the stream and share all the clips like always. Let me see. I gotta pull up the chat. Kiss the dog. She doesn't like the microphone. Alright, there we go. Where am... Oh, I'm live. Ah, chat, there we go. What are you doing, Mika? Alright, come on. Come here. Go to your bed. Go to your bed. Good girl. Here you go, my girl. Alright. So, I'm choosing between two books. I don't know which one she would rather hear. I've got this book here, which is The Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs, which is an interesting book about using outdoor clues to find your way, predict the weather, locate water, track animals, and other forgotten skills. So a lot of survival skills, which Mika could really use, considering ever since we rescued her, she's lived a rather pampered life. Or one that Shy and I were interested in, which is Run the Rummin', which is about Prohibition in South Florida during, Prohibition in South Florida and how bootleggers got through alcohol and things like that. Not sure how interested Mika would be in that, but... My girl, do you want to face the camera? Or do you want to face me? I know you want to face me. So it's up to you guys, whichever book we want to read. I'm only going to be reading one chapter of it, because obviously I do need to get work done, but I wanted to spend some time with my baby, because I do feel like I don't spend anywhere near enough time with her. My sweet girl. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm actually going to post this in my Discord. Let's see. Read the Prohibition book? Prof might be interested in it. Okay. Alright, let me just post this in my Discord real quick, so this way others can see. Alright, just give me a second, guys. Stream announcements. There we go. You are interested. There we go. I'm really cozy right now too, which is nice. Okay. Ready, Mika? Alright, let's go here. Okay. So CNOT wants us to read this. So you ready? I'm gonna rotate you a little bit. Just because you're very in tune with that bone. Alright. So this is Run the Rummin', Rum Runners, Bootleggers, and Stills by Sally J. Ling. South Florida during the Prohibition. Okay. Do we want to read the preface? No acknowledgements. Introduction. There we go. That's where we'll start. I guess we'll read the introduction and chapter 1 today and see how that goes. So you ready, Mika? Okay. Fort Lauderdale Daily News, Tuesday, April 10th, 1929. Gruesome remains of the partially decomposed body of a man who had been shot through the back and tossed in the salt marsh on a lonely stretch of the Florinata Beach were discovered this morning. Oh, a very happy start. Maybe this isn't the book. Maybe I'm getting the feeling this might not be the choice. I think we're gonna go to the other book. Okay. Alright, let's try this introduction and see where this takes us. 10 years ago, I was walking along a beach in Brittany, relaxing after a tiring journey. A young couple emerged from what appeared to be an upmarket hotel and crossed in front of me. From their choice of swimwear, their hairstyles, and their body language, they gave the impression of being continental Europeans. The few words of conversation I overheard confirmed them as Italians. The couple paused as the first wave washed over their feet, and then they did what a lot of people do at this point. They subconsciously checked their valuable items of jewelry. Both their right hands moved to the fingers on their left hands, and it was at this that drew my attention to the wedding ring. It did not take a huge leap from there, given their age and luxuriousness of the hotel, to surmise that they were probably on their honeymoon. I had built a limited picture of this couple in less than 10 seconds using very basic techniques of deduction that are fairly familiar thanks to the countless detective stories that rely on this type of observation-logical thought. These simple thought processes have earned the nickname Holmesian, after the fictional detective who exemplified the art of analyzing strangers in this way. Toward the end of the day, I saw the same couple again. They started building a fire on the beach, using the clues they could see on the beach, including the birds, the lichens on the rocks, the insects, the clouds, the sun, and the moon. I worked out that the sun would set in 40 minutes, the sky would cloud over shortly after that, and rain would follow soon after, and the tide would extinguish their small bonfire half an hour after sunset. What? Are you liking the story? If the couple had plans of a night of stargazing by the fire, then the sea and the sky had other plans. They'd be forced to retire early, which in the circumstances would probably be no great tragedy. A pair of astronomers may have been disappointed by the passage of events that night, but a pair of honeymooners might well be delighted. I walked off the beach, so I cannot tell you exactly what happened on the sand that night. There are limits to our powers of deduction, but they lie far beyond the place most of us imagine. In truth, we rarely focus our powers of deduction and prediction on the natural world, but that is about to change. In my mid-20s, I had some time between jobs and an appetite for a serious walk. I met up with a friend, Sam, who felt a similar restlessness. During the second minute of our discussion, we decided that a walk from Scotland to London sounded about right, and by the third we had settled on a walking from Glasgow to London. We averaged over 20 miles a day and arrived in London 5 weeks after setting off, having seen a good slice of Britain and no shortage of ugliness and beauty. I remember one day of that walk very fondly indeed. We were into the third week of our journey and had just begun walking up a hill in the Peak District in northern England when a pair of dark silhouettes appeared on the horizon. A few minutes later we could see that they were serious walkers. Or perhaps it would be more accurate to say that we could see that they were walkers with serious budgets. They had pieces of kit that I could neither afford nor spell draped all over them and hanging down toward their gleaming gaiters. Their walking poles looked like they cost more than our rucksacks. and their contents combined. The two premium walkers paused opposite, looked down their noses at us in our t-shirts, shorts, and $19 trainers and said, "You don't want to go up there dressed like that." It was a forgivable sentiment. We did doubtless look like a pair of clueless fools. They followed up with a question and a patronizing smile. "Where have you come from?" "Glasgow," Sam and I replied simultaneously. They fell silent and we continued up the hill. Most of the walking books I have come across over the years get bogged down in obsessive attention to safety and equipment. I have rarely found myself enjoying these books because I do not go walking with the purpose of staying within a world of perfect safety and comfort. Personally, I'd rather die walking than die of boredom reading about how to walk safely. There's a theory I have experimented with over the years, as you'll see. In this book, I will take the original approach of assuming that you are capable of walking safely and with roughly the right socks on. If you're the sort of person who likes to go ice climbing in a nightie, then you probably don't read many walking books, and I suspect it would take more than a book to mend your ways. With a handful of exceptions, my advice in the area of safety is 3 words long. Don't be daft. That said, everyone needs the right tools for certain jobs. In the appendices, you will find a series of methods for working out distances, heights, angles, and so forth. None of these involve buying anything or carrying anything, but they are nonetheless remarkably useful. Most guidebooks for walkers give the reader information about a particular location. This one does not. Instead, it lays out techniques that can be applied to any walk in almost any area, and demonstrates how these techniques can be combined to make the walk more interesting than the sum of its parts. Where it is not specified, it should be assumed that the techniques will work in the northern temperature zone, which includes the UK as well as most of Europe and the US. This is a book about outdoor clues and signs and the art of making predictions, deductions. The aim of the book is to make your walks, however long or short, eminently more fascinating. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, she loves these bones. She's my baby girl. My boy is over there slapping his litter box, which he does best. Getting started. So this is chapter 1. Once we finish chapter 1, we will go on to the art stream. Oh, Pascal's been yelling at you, C-Not? How's she, do you still have people over? Or have they finally left and let her be? Because I'm curious. Or is she finally warmed up to people being around? Thank you, Austin. Alright, no wonder. Yeah, Pascal's probably very happy. By the way, Austin, if you could, I'd be very appreciative if you could retweet the stream from my Twitter. Because I want to see how well this concept can work with people. So the farther it goes, the better. And the more I could do streams like this, maybe. Because this is probably going to be better for my mental health. Because I need to do things like this to help my my brain decompress. So anyway, welcome to the stream. What we're currently reading is The Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs, which is a book about using outdoor clues to find your way in the wilderness. Just do it anyways? I mean, yeah. I'm gonna try doing this a few more times, probably till the end of this book, and see how well the concept catches on. Alright, let's get started. With getting started. How can a smell make a train appear? One small clue can change the way you think about your surroundings quite dramatically. I would like you to imagine that you are on a walk on a cold morning and you pick up... Mika. Here you go, my baby. Are you gonna hold your bone? There you go. Much better. I would like you to imagine that you are on a walk on a cold morning and you pick up the faint, constant scent of musty smoke. However, you can see no sign of a fire. I want you to ask yourself what deductions and predictions you might be able to draw. Now think for a minute before reading on. Alright, that's actually kind of fun. So I want you guys to think about it. You're able to smell The faint constant scent of musty smoke. However, you can see no sign of a fire. What might be creating that smoke early in the morning? Just give yourself some time to ask. For me personally, considering the subtitle of the subtitle of this chapter is "How Can a Smell Make a Train Appear?" makes me think that it could possibly be a train, but I'd also like to think that it's probably some small business owner cooking something early in the morning. It's actually fun. Right outside of our apartment, we have a donut shop, and with this donut shop, they make fresh donuts at all hours of the day because a lot of truckers stop in there. And since a lot of truckers stop in, they're always making donuts. So sometimes when I take Mika down, I'm so lucky that I get to smell them making fresh donuts, all sweet in the air, and the whole air just smells wonderful like a bakery. It's really nice. And I'm thinking maybe that's the kind of smell that you have. Obviously not going to be donuts, but it could be something nice like, I don't know, someone smoking meat or something like that. Always a good possibility. But let's see. Smelling smoke on a cold morning. If you can smell smoke in the air on a cold morning, it is likely that there is a temperature inversion, which occurs when a layer of warmer air traps a cooler layer near the surface. The smoke from factories and home fires gets trapped near the ground and spreads along under the warmer layer, giving the air a musty whiff of smoke. When there is a temperature inversion, it creates a sandwich effect, and sound, light, and radio waves get bounced between the top of the cool layer of air and the ground. Sounds travel further in these conditions and can be heard more loudly, so you'll hear airports, roads, or trains that you cannot normally hear. The effects can be more dramatic if there are any very loud noises nearby, and a violent demonstration of this effect took place in the middle of the last century. An explosion creates an extreme form of sound called a shock wave. In 1955, one of the earliest nuclear weapon tests in Russia created a shock wave that bounced back down off the inversion layer, knocked over a building in Semipalatinsk, and killed the 3 occupants. I just can't escape death on this stream, can I? Even in this book. Light is refracted in an inversion, and this unusual bending of the rays leads to optical illusions. In normal atmospheric conditions, very distant objects appear shortened and squashed. This is why we often see a squashed fat sun at the sunset. In an inversion, the opposite happens, and the objects appear to be stretched vertically. This can lead to an optical illusion called a fata morgana, the Italian nickname for this strange type of mirage. A fata morgana is best known for making objects appear to levitate in the distance. Bridges and boats are seen to hover above the water. This type of inversion refraction will also improve your chances of seeing the rare phenomenon known as a green flash, when a momentary burst of green light is seen at the exact moment of sunset. Radio waves, especially the VHF waves that we are familiar with from FM radio, will be bounced down in the same way that sound waves are, and they also travel further. Instead of escaping into the atmosphere, these waves continue their journey in the sandwich layer, and it becomes possible to pick up stations that would normally be hundreds of miles out of range. This technique is known as tropospheric ducting to radio hams, and was used extensively to pick up distant stations long before the internet made this straightforward. The smell of smoke in the winter air led to many an eavesdrop conversation behind the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. These conditions can also lead to interference, especially along coastlines, as stations that are normally a safe distance apart start to overlap. This interference creates a scrambled sound on radios. During an inversion, there is a high chance of fog in the evening or morning. If the trapped smoke and fog are dense enough, this can lead to smog. In 1952, a temperature inversion led to horrible smog that caused more than 11,000 deaths in London from the respiratory problems. A temperature inversion is an intriguing meteorological phenomenon, but not a very healthy one, and it is fortunate that it will never normally last for long. Picking up one simple scent can take the mind on an extraordinary journey. I'm glad to hear it, Rex. We're actually currently between chapters right now. I just can't seem to escape death in these books, but I guess none of us can really escape death. Not that it's a bad thing. I mean, It allows new life to exist. If everyone who ever existed still existed today, there's no way that we'd be able to live the way that we do. So, I mean, while I was trying to avoid death with that book, it's still something that happens. The funny thing is, with our bookshelf, basically everything's about death. I'm not that big of a reader anymore. I spent 6 years as an editor at a publishing company. So I was reading like 3,000 words a day. Not 3,000. I was reading about 300 pages a day. So more like 60 to 70,000 words. So having to do that a day really kind of kicked the shit out of my enjoyment for reading. So I stopped being a reader for a good while. Shy, however, has always been a reader. She's a bachelor's of applied psych from NYU. So a lot of our books are a lot of psychology books. Problem is, a lot of psychological phenomena have a reliance on death, so because of that, a lot of our reading material can be quite depressing. But for now, this is one of our more lighthearted books, and it's important because this is stuff that you can actually apply in your day-to-day life, just looking at the sky and things like that. So I think it's nice, and I think it really adds to the mystery of life. Because to be honest, if we do want to get philosophical, like Austin mentioned, if you look at nihilistic principles, really the joy is acknowledging that no matter what we do, it really has no effect on our overall end, so we might as well enjoy everything along the way, because that's all we got. Live every moment to be as good as it can be, because really that's what matters in life, is your happiness in the moment. Alright. Picking up one simple scent can take the mind on an extraordinary journey. Sense and thought, observation and deduction. The simple two-step process is the key to transforming a walk from mind-numbing to synapse tingling. One cannot work without the other. The brain can build wonderful edifices in our mind, but it requires a scaffold that our senses provide. This is a symbiotic relationship. The brain is dull without the senses, and the senses become lazy without the brain's chivying. I've actually never seen that word. Fortunately, the brain's task here is fun and takes the form of a series of questions. Which way am I looking? What will the weather do? How far is that? What is the temperature? How old is that? What will I see next? These simple questions and many others, if answered without the aid of dumb tools and with the clues from smells, shades, and colors and shapes, will force the senses and mind to work together afresh and light an intriguing bonfire between the walker's ears. A fair warning should be issued here. This is not a process for all. Not everyone should be expected to enjoy such ignitions. There are many kinds of walkers. There are some who like to walk to switch off their mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is, however, a large group of walkers who like to feel their minds flex with their legs, and this book is written for them. For those who feel that the mind will get plenty of rest in the brief lulls of during sleep or apparently abundant downtime after death, then walking is a time to revel in fresh insight. There have, I am aware, been documented cases of these two groups of walkers tolerating each other's company and even passing pleasant hours together. However, the worrying twinkle in the eyes of the latter group tends to scatter the former, and the two should not, in the normal course of events, attempt to walk together. They are best advised to place small hills between each other. So I do want to take a brief moment to talk, since this stream is mostly about Mika, and just giving her the attention she needs. Especially since we're talking so much about the shortness of life, and that's something that a lot of pet owners deal with. I do want to talk about adopting older animals, because I know that there's a very people get concerned. They feel I can't do it. I can't adopt an animal that I know that is going to pass so soon. But what's really interesting is that mindset. You're so worried about the passing that you're not concerned with the life they still have to live. And with so many animals, there's a lot of life still left to give. Older animals do take a little bit more work, and that's fine. If you don't have the ability to take care of them, that's a different story, because their medical needs tend to be higher than others. But they still deserve a happy life. Every senior animal does. Scary stories to tell in the dark. Now, we're having a nice enjoyable talk, but I would recommend, if you ever get the chance to go to your local animal shelter, definitely look into the older pets. A lot of these animals got put into a position where they lost their owners, and now they just want to enjoy their last years in retirement, and you can be the person that makes their life again. Short life doesn't necessarily mean a bad one, at least if you have the control to make it a good one. So that's just something I always like to encourage, is adopting older pets. With Mika, we adopted her when we believe she was 3 years old, but we've got no clue what she is because she's another adopted dog. It's hard with adopted dogs. You don't really know their past. It's kind of like meeting a new friend. You don't really know everything that they went through, but you're happy to be with them now, and that's what matters. The mic seems pretty quiet. There we go. That should be much better. Let me know. Okay, now to business. That is, the business of turning fresh air into an elixir of mind-expanding qualities. This is best achieved by tackling the individual components that the walker is likely to encounter in turn. The ground, the sky, the plants, and animals will be introduced individually, so that the walker can acquaint themselves with the clues contained within each category. It should be remembered, however, that nature does not compartmentalize willingly, and so the real fun comes from when we bring the disparate ingredients together in a great fresh pudding of deduction. While the curves in a tree's roots can act as a compass, the colors on a rock will reveal the best time to go for a night walk. Once all the elements become familiar, the chances of encountering that great outdoors experience, that giddy sensation that comes from tiptoeing toward the edge of a total understanding, can be enjoyed and nurtured. But first, it is necessary to do the groundwork. Alright, so we did just reach chapter 2. If you guys would like me to read more, I totally can. It's currently 9 o'clock. I could read until 9:30 if you guys would be interested. If you guys feel like you've had enough of this book, we can go do my art stream. But I do ask, if you do want me to continue, I'd be very appreciative if you could retweet the original tweet where I announced this stream, because that can help me see if this is the type of content that there's room for. Because I like doing things with Mika, and I'd like to do a few more streams with her. So let me know in the chat, would you like me to continue going? And if so, just give me a word, let me know. What do you think of the book so far? She's so cute. She's such a funny dog too. I don't talk about her enough on Twitter, but there's so many things that she does that makes me smile. For example, whenever I come home, she howls a lot. Another thing that she does, she's very apt to be upside down. She also has a bad habit of dropping things off the couch, which makes it a bit problematic to do this on the couch, but I'm definitely not doing it on the floor, especially with my back. What is it, my girl? Are you having a good night? Do you enjoy me reading books to you? This dog makes me happier than anything. I always look at her and I smile, 'cause she's just so sweet to me. Do it on the cat tree. That's a good point. I like that. My boy's up there, doing what he does best, being fat. She is so adorable. Oh, are you done with your bone for now? I'll put it in here so you don't drop it. Okay, you're not done with your bone. You just lost your bone for a moment. I love the way that she holds things with her little paws. Okay. Let's see how long chapter 2 is. Oh wow, there's pictures in this book. I guess I'll have to show you guys. Oh wow, this goes on. Chapter 2 is kind of intensive. We might only get halfway through chapter 2. But he really goes into things that mud have. It's crazy. People like this are my favorite because they see the world so differently than we do. Man looks at mud and he sees an entire world. So I guess let's talk about mud. Also, this is the first time you'll ever see Corgian feet on stream. Alright. Ready, Mika? You dropped your bone again? Now what are you gonna do? Are you gonna lay on your back until I pick it up? You live such a spoiled life now. It makes me happy. Let me rotate her for you guys. Not only for you guys, but for her, because she keeps dropping her bone off the edge. There we go. Alright, let's get started. Ground. What does the color of mud mean? At the start of any walk, it is a good idea to take a moment to gauge any high ground, valleys, bumps, and lines, and to search for shapes and patterns. It makes no difference whether you are crossing gentle undulations in East Anglia or the Himalayas. The game is the same. It is impossible for us to find clues within a landscape without taking a really good look at it. To begin with, most people find this easiest with a map to relate to, but, as we will see by the end of the book, it is not the map that should make sense of the land, but the land that will make the map for us. For millennia, humanity covered the earth mostly on foot and without the aid of a map. On my courses, I like to use a straightforward exercise to illustrate the importance of properly observing our surroundings. When we have the opportunity, at the top of a hill, I ask a group what they will think will be the most dramatic change that we are about to experience in the walk. A few worried faces will scour the sky for omens of imminent changes in the weather, then finding none will go blank. Next, I ask the group to give me a list of the landscape features they can see by looking in all directions. A farm building, the edge of a woodland, 2 summits, the coastline, a distant radio mast, 3 paths, towering smoke from a fire, the edge of a town, a road, a wall. The list goes on as long as I let it. Oh, sorry about that. Then we walk on for 10 minutes, and since we were at the top of the hill, there's only one way, down. Stepping into woodland at the bottom of a very modest valley, I asked the group to list the landscape features they can see by looking in all directions. It's uphill in both directions. Trees. That's it. In 10 minutes, we have gone from feast to famine. Well, not quite famine. There's a lot of potential in those meager secondary observations, as we will see when we meet the Dayak tribesmen of the Borneo later. But for now, the key thing to appreciate is that a good view of a landscape is not just pretty, it's also a rich source of information. Height offers perspective, and this is a valuable gift. Surveyors have always understood this. It is one of the reasons that if you find yourself standing next to a trig point or trigonometrical station in good visibility, you should be able to spot at least 2 others on high points in the distance. So I want to talk about this paragraph real quick. Because I understand he's talking about landscape, and I understand that he means a physical hill. But I do think that we get a lot more from life when we look at the rest of our life. We get so much more information when we're on the top of our game, when things are going great for us. We tend to take that for granted, and we're not really looking around at all the information that it gave us to get to that point. It's so easy to look at when we're down in a hill and say, why me? Why are things so hard? And whenever I hear that, I always remember one, what is this? It's not quite a metaphor. I guess it's an analogy. So, it's the story of a blade of grass on a golf course. This blade of grass has been growing there forever. It's been enjoying its life. And despite being on a golf course, it's never had issue. Then, one day a golfer swings his club, and his golf ball lands going at the speed of gravity right onto the blade of grass, to which the blade of grass says, why me? Out of all of these blades of grass, why did the ball land on me? Which, it's a fair point. Why? Why did it happen to him? But on that same note, it's going to land somewhere. It's not a matter of asking, why did it happen to me? But rather knowing what you're going to do next now that it has. Life is so many unexpected moments, and it's so important for you to be able to take a look at these things and say, okay, this has happened to me. What am I going to do next? And when you start to realize that it's just a series of problems to solve, and as you solve them, things become better, and thus get you to the top of that hill, you can start to better analyze what got you to the top of that hill in the first place. So it's really nice, instead of worrying about what put you into those pits, to think and cherish the things that put you on the top of that hill. It's just a nice change in perspective, and perspective is so important if you want to find happiness in this world. Because after all, happiness is something that we all find within ourselves. Alright. Every time we get a view of any kind, is a prompt to make a mental note of the dominant features. This happens automatically when a landmark is prominent or characterful. These are the landmarks that tend to earn memorable and descriptive names. Sugarloaf Mountain in the Monmouthshire, Wales, is as strong a reference for walkers there as Sugarloaf Mountain in Rio de Janeiro. Unfortunately, the likelihood of someone noticing the dramatic landmarks is exceeded by the likelihood of their missing the subtle ones. Think of a view you can know well and count in your mind the number of landmarks of any kind you can recall. The next time you are there with someone else, list the features separately as part of a friendly competition. Crumbled walls, trees, rocks, or ridge lines will start to appear out of the air. In truth, taking the time to note the character of the less prominent landmarks is a habit that takes effort to cultivate. It is only common in three groups of people that I have walked with: artists, experienced soldiers, and indigenous peoples. It seems to me that studying the more intricate character of a landscape is something that the modern mind finds difficult and strangely unnatural. If you're finding yourself struggling, there are two broad methods for honing this skill. You can either spend a lot of time living in remote areas without any technology, maps, or compasses, or you can take the time to sketch a couple of landscapes. Only one of these is a particularly practical solution. The quality of your artwork is not important. What's vital is practicing the art of seeing and noticing. Learning to study a view more carefully is a lot more fun when you know a bit about perspective, light, and its effect on landscapes. The next time you have a good view over a series of undulating hills, look for something you will have seen 1,000 times but perhaps never taken note of. Hi Sky Smog, welcome to the stream. Currently we're reading The Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs. It's using outdoor clues to find your way, predict the weather, locate water, track animals, and other forgotten skills. So it's all survival techniques. Just figured this would be good for Mika considering she's so spoiled. She doesn't know how to find anything on her own anymore, because everything's so provided for her in her life. She's so sweet. And I would ask if you guys could. I'd be very appreciative if you could retweet the tweet that I made for this, so we could see how interesting of a concept this is for a lot of people. Because I think it's a fun idea to just read to your dog, and I'd like to see more streams like this too. Notice how the further away things are, the lighter they appear. The nearest hill is noticeably darker than the one behind it, and the one behind that appears lighter still, all the way to the horizon. This is due to an atmospheric optical effect called the Rayleigh. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Rayleigh scattering, after the British scientist who studied it. This scattering effect is the reason the sky is blue and the horizon always appears a shade closer to white, even on a day without clouds. An understanding of light and contrast can help in making a prediction. Have you ever looked out at a hillside toward the start or end of the day and thought the colors looked extraordinary, almost luminescent and strikingly rich? This effect happens whenever we look with a low sun on our back toward a hill with a dark sky behind it. If the sun breaks through the clouds in the last hour before sunset, then be sure to put the sun on your back and look at the view. It will be extraordinarily rich, and the colors you see in the land in front of you will appear to glow. This is one of my favorite ways to end a day of walking in imperfect weather. There's an aspect of perspective that is more practical than fun and well worth knowing. Our brains get slightly confused when we are on a slope. When walking uphill or downhill, our brain makes a small adjustment to normalize things, that is, to make everything appear closer to level. This has the inadvertent effect of skewing our perspective of other gradients. When we walk downhill, a steeper downhill appears gentler than it actually is. From a downhill gradient, level ground ahead of us will appear as a gentle uphill, and a gentle uphill becomes a steep uphill. This effect is not usually a big problem for walkers, as their speed gives us a lot of time to adjust, but it catches motorists and cyclists out regularly and gives them a chance to smell their brakes. This gradient illusion is part of a broader area that is regularly underestimated by walkers. Our current perspective will influence our sense of everything else. For this reason, never look at something that is moving if balance is critical. If you ever need to walk across something narrow, say a fallen tree that crosses a stream or river, then don't look at the moving water. It makes balancing almost impossible. Once we have trained ourselves to become observant, only then can we enjoy the bigger game of deduction. Oh, poor Mika. She dropped her lammy. She's had this lammy since we first got her. First day that we brought her home, we went to the pet store and we got her this bed because there's one thing that she loves doing, and that's laying down. And we bought her this little lammy. She really loves this lammy so much, and she treats it like her puppy for the most part. Some days she chooses it a little bit too aggressively, but she really loves her lammy. Right now she's cuddling with the dinosaur plushie that we got her for her birthday. She loves this big thing. When we first got it for her, she wasn't really that interested in it, but then we went away for a little. I think it was for an event. And when we did, my poor girl had her brother pee on all of her toys except for this one. So she didn't want to play with any of the toys that had pee on them. So she played with this one, and she learned to love it. Since then, I've washed all of her toys very thoroughly because my Mr. Boy loves getting his pee wherever he can, but I still love him. How long have I had Mika? Actually, it's been about a year now. We got her halfway through October last year. So we've had Mika for about a year. Can you believe it, my girl? We've been together for a year now. She's so sweet. She's got the sweetest eyes. I love the way that she cuddles with toys. Oh, your puppy's 12? That's a good old baby. I hope you get many more years with them. Let's see. Once we have trained ourselves to become observant, only then can we enjoy the bigger game of deduction. This may start with broad observations. The north and south sides of hills live separate lives, shaped by wildly different amounts of solar energy. Unless wind and precipitation shake things up, you will likely notice that the southern-facing slopes have more vegetation, and that the north sides of mountains show more evidence of glaciers. Snow lines, tree lines, and habitation will reach slightly higher on slopes with the southern aspect. Plants on this side will typically germinate about 4 days before their north-facing cousins, too. Hey, Junior DM, welcome to the stream, my friend. Really, NSP Base P, you've had your dog that long? That puppy could barely even open their eyes. Prevailing wind can be an invaluable clue in a wide range of situations. But before I get too far into the subject, I should remind readers that the prevailing wind direction changes from place to place. In the UK, I'm accustomed to a southwestern wind, and while westerlies dominate higher regions of the atmosphere in many parts of the US, surface winds are more dependent on local geography, the time of year, and other variables, so they'll differ across the US. The author also notes that they're going to explain the distinction between types of wind on page 128. We've got a long time before then. To adapt the techniques in this book to your own walks, you'll want to be sure to verify the way the wind most commonly blows near you. The good news is once you've determined your local prevailing wind direction, it can be one of the most valuable pieces of information in your toolbox to interpret nature's signs. That's actually really cool, I never considered that. Page 128, hype? We'll get there. Currently we're on page 9, so we're only a short ways away from page 128. I hope you guys are all ready for page 128 when we read all about different types of wind. I gotta say though, it's really frustrating when you've got page numbers in your text. Back when I was an editor at a publishing company, this is one of the most common things that you had to check like threefold. Because the thing is, if throughout the entire process of editing, oh, there's my boy. Hi, Professor. He's just eating his dinner. But, anytime you change something in a book, the book reflows. So lines start to move just because you change like one or two things. Because of that, information that was on one page can sometimes flow over to another. It can get really frustrating. You have to be sure to check this stuff. And then when you bring a book over to an ebook, suddenly all those page numbers don't matter. Because ebooks tend to have a completely reflowable format that allows you to zoom in and make text bigger whenever you need it. So, because of that, it's not that helpful to have a page number. Instead, you'll say, link to this part of the ebook. But yeah, that's just something from publishing. So I look at these things and I just remember all that kind of stuff. Slopes that face a prevailing wind will tend to have a thinner soil and shorter trees than sheltered ones. While it is difficult to predict exactly how your view will change with aspect, this is where the detective work begins. You can be certain that it will. And whenever you find asymmetry, you have also uncovered clues. This habit of noticing things will quickly allow you to focus in on the finer detail. Even an untrained eye is likely to notice the walls or hedges that line a field, but the observant walker will spot that the gate is in the corner of the field. What is the double clue in this observation? Read on to find out. Ooh, we're getting an acronym. So now we're getting sorted. Sketching a landscape is one of the general ways of reading it more effectively, but it is such an important skill that I will also show you a more specific approach. I use and teach a technique I call the Get Sorted method based on the acronym SORTED. So S is for shape, O is for overall character, R is for routes, T is for tracks, E is for edges, and D is for detail. These 6 steps will help you notice a lot more useful clues than if you try to take in everything simultaneously. Each step could take up a whole book, but the aim here is to show you the method, explain each step, and give you some more useful and fun examples. If you don't learn how to have a bit of fun with this, it isn't likely to stick with you for so long. That said, there are 2 stages. The first part, SOAR, is about getting a good picture of your surroundings. The second, TED, is about finding the clues within, which is where the fun really starts. I like how it's separated into SOAR, TED. Poor Ted. Man never stops being sore. Alright, so let's start with shape. First, I have to cough for a little. I am still getting over my cold, and that's why my voice is so much raspier than usual. So give me a second, because this is going to irritate my throat unless I do. There we go. Alright. Shape. When I was 14, I announced to my father that my friends and I were planning to go walking and camping in the Brecon Beacons that summer. I clearly remember my father quizzing me and gauging how determined I was to do it. Once he realized that it was going to happen, he decided to get behind it so that he could nudge it nearer to success than failure. I opened the Ordnance Survey map my friends and I had bought of the central Brecon Beacon range in the Wales, and showed him where we were planning to walk. Still laugh inwardly when I think of the route I showed him. It was almost a straight line from our first camp that headed straight up the near vertical southern face of Pen y Fan, the highest point in southern Britain. It was a route that entirely ignored footpaths, and it was, being kind to myself here, both stupid and impossible. In my defense, the route was ludicrous, but the location was cunning. My father had come to know the Brecon Beacons very well during his time as a Special Air Service officer. However foolhardy he thought the overall plan, I knew he'd find it hard to resist the temptation to get involved. My father was patient and suggested that I look at the contours of the map, and then went outside, dug up some earth, and made a mud model of the mountain we planned to walk up. A few weeks later, 4 14-year-olds descended safely from the summit of Pen y Fan, all the way down to a rendezvous with my father's car, parked by the road a few miles away. My father's careful lessons about shape meant we were greeted with tea and Mars bars instead of helicopters and news crews. I did not know it at the time, but he was introduced me to a fundamental appreciation of landscape, one shared by everyone that walks close to the edge, from special forces to nomads. Before this walking trip, I had understood in a theoretical school geography lesson kind of way what contour lines on a map meant. After this 5-day camping and hiking adventure, I understood the importance of actually familiarizing myself with the shape of the mountains. It would take another decade at least before I began to appreciate the more subtle clues contained within the shape of hills. I have now trained myself to be able to walk several miles safely in thick fog without instruments and with reference mainly to the shape of the land. The first pieces of the shape jigsaw are the big ones. Find the high ground, the summits, the ridges, the rivers, and any coastlines, and familiarize yourself with their layout and orientation. Now try to identify the forces that have created the shapes you see and the direction of their action. Broadly speaking, most of our landscapes will reveal ground eroded by water in the form of sea, rivers, or glaciers, and to a lesser extent, wind. It's high noon. Although studying the land in this way sounds like a vague process, it is far from it. Once you have identified that a valley has been carved out by a glacier moving from south to north, you can also sense not just of the valley's U-shaped profile, but of almost every hollow, bump, and scratch within that valley. Rochus mountains are rock formations that only reveal their character once you've tuned into the way the ice flowed. These rocks have a smooth side in the direction the ice flowed from, and a much rougher appearance on the lee or down ice side. On a smaller scale, striations are the scratch marks left by a glacier that has dragged one rock over the surface of another one. Every one of these scratch marks is willing to act as a compass. Once we have tuned to the ice flow in each area, we can use that history to read the hills and rocks. That's really interesting, but that's definitely not going to help me down here in Florida. We definitely don't get any glaciers of any nominal scale down here. But with that, we have been reading for an hour. And I do want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in for this so far. I think it's time for me to go get started on my art. So if you guys have enjoyed this, please follow. If you can subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. Because I do intend to do a few more of these in the future, see how they go. Because this one was rather impromptu, and I just wanted to do it to help me plan for a more mentally healthy day. And with that, we're going to go to a short break, and then I'm going to get started on my art for the day. Today's art, I'm going to be working a bit more on drawing the golden accents on the voice actor for Fire Emblem's Claude, his overlay. So I'm going to be working on that today. And I think that should be it for today's art, because that's a really intensive piece that I'm working on. I'm going to eventually convert the base of the overlay into 3D and then start inlaying beautiful flowing lights into the work. But for now, I think this should be good. So, with that, let's go to a short break, and I'll be right back. Ooh, my nose is getting a little bit clogged. Still dealing with that sickness. So just give me 1 second, guys.